My name is John Deal, and I am the drawing and painting technician at the Ontario College of Art and Design. And today I'm going to show you how to build your support for your strainer, and that is your canvas support. It's fairly simple, but I want to run through it because it'll help everyone develop their skills in building their supports. And let's get started. So first, I want to just show you that I have two different pieces of wood here. If you look down the length of this piece of wood, what you can notice is that there is a bevel on the piece of wood. And that's so that when we build our frame, we can make sure that this stays on the outside of the frame and the canvas will come over top of it. That's so that we can avoid what's called ghosting, where your brush comes to the edge of the canvas and it hits, if, for example, you had a piece that was not beveled, your canvas would lay against the entire surface here, and when you hit that with your brush loaded with paint, it's going to deposit some of the paint where the canvas and the strainer meet, which creates a line. So we bevel the wood to avoid that, and that helps us in our building process. One thing that's important to note is you'll notice that I'm using what is referred to as a Morso guillotine. This is a great product for a great tool for creating miter joints easily and without having to use power tools and without having to put a lot of effort into it. So a lot of people who have limited experience with tools will find this very accessible. On the other hand, the price is a bit prohibitive to purchase one of these machines, and it only suits a larger purpose or a larger community in that case. So for homes, you can use the miter box, which I'll show you later on, and that tool will be able to give you your 45 degrees, or if you want to do any other angles and create geometric shapes, multi-sided supports, then you can do that with the miter box. What I always do first is I'm going to place the high side of the bevel against my fence, and I'm going to be mitering the first corner, or the first end of my, and you can see that what we have here is a 45-degree angle, and that when we combine two of these is going to give me a 90-degree angle. And we'll get our frame support that way. What I do is I just take the tips off of both of the pieces that I'm going to be using. Today I'm going to be building a 3x4 strainer. So I need two pieces at approximately, exactly 3 feet, and two pieces at 4 feet. So what I've done is I have two pieces. One is 6 foot and one is 8 foot. I want to limit the amount of offcut that I have here. So I'm just going to measure my first piece at 36 inches. And next, I'm going to put that back through the guillotine. And I'm just going to feed the length of wood into the guillotine again. And I'm going to line the mark up with this little space between the two fences, and that'll give me my cut point. And then I have the blade stepped out so that I'm not cutting the entire piece of wood at once. I'm cutting it in sections, and that's going to reduce the amount of force that I need to use, which makes it a bit easier for myself, but it also means that the blade doesn't have to go through as much force and pressure, so it helps to maintain and sustain the edge of the blade. Okay, so I'm just going to make a couple of cuts here. And it's very easy to do. And there we have our second miter on our first side. And now once I've got my first end cut, I'm just going to put it back to back with the other side of my wood. And I'm going to hold them together with my hand. And I'm just going to transfer this measurement over to my other piece. This will be the corresponding side across from the 36. Now, I just want to point one thing out here before we go on. This miter is actually a 90-degree, and so when you are cutting your wood, the rule to remember is that the high point of your wood, when it has a bevel, is on your side, because it's always going to take out that 90-degree section. So you're actually going to be mitering two sides at the same time. Okay, so on the corresponding piece here, you can see this was cut from the first piece, and I already have my first miter on that. So I don't need to recut this. Just an important thing. It's one of the mistakes that's commonly made with this is that people will they'll flip their wood, and so they'll end up with miters that are parallel, which is exactly what you don't want. You want the miter to be perpendicular so that they're actually going in towards the middle of the frame. So I'm just going to put this back in, and I'm going to measure it to my mark. And again, I'm just going to step the blade out a little bit and cut, and my second cut, and there we are. So that's our first two sides for our 3-foot. And now I'm going to move on to my 4-foot side. So I'll put these over here. And I've already got this side mitered. So I'm going to measure 48 inches, which is 4 feet. And then I'm just going to bring this back through the guillotine. You continue this for each side until you have your 4 sides cut. And again, I'm just going to put them back to back. And you can see what I'm doing here. I'm putting my finger on the top so that they're together, and then I'm grabbing down as I move down the piece of wood, and I'm just going to transfer my measurement here. Okay? So I'm just going to put that aside. That's done. And we're going to bring the last 4-foot piece back through and line it up. And there I have my 4 outer pieces. So I have my 2 4 feet, and I have my 2 3-foot lengths. And what I want to point out here is that you'll notice if you put them back to back, they're opposites. And that's because they need to go on either side of the piece. You can see now that the bevels are going down and towards the center, and that's what's going to keep the canvas taut and away from any stretcher bars that could create ghosting. Now what I'm going to do is I want to join my 2 sides, and I have my 3-foot and my 4-foot. It's important to remember which hand you have it in, because you want to make sure that you're creating the same 2 sides, 2 halves. I'm going to build this in halves because I find it a lot easier to handle once we have the sides cut. I'm going to place it into my corner vise, or my miter vise, or my corner clamp. It has several names. And I'm just going to tighten it. And I'm just going to hold it in place. I just want to make sure that it does join up. And now I'm going to put a little dab of glue, and really just a little bit, because you don't want too much glue on this. What happens is that the glue comes down, and it ultimately will collect on the clamp, and that's going to create a deposit, which eventually will keep the pieces raised. I just need to grab a hammer. Okay, now I'm just going to place my nails, and I'm going to put in 3 nails. And just while we're here, I just want to let everybody know, when you're handling a hammer, it's a good idea to get used to a hammer. You want to basically tack your nail in so it's just sitting in place, and then you want to choke down on your hammer so that your hand is down towards the bottom. It's sort of like baseball. Choke down on your hammer, and then just a couple of taps should have the nail secured. Okay? And I'm going to put 3 nails in because what I want is 2 nails on one side and 1 nail on the other side. That way they're overlapping inside, and that's going to actually strengthen this more. The glue does a lot of the work here as well, okay? Once I've got the 2 sides fastened, I'm going to turn it around so that I've got the bottom of the frame. This is the side that is not beveled. I'm just going to clamp that really loosely. And what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be placing a gusset. A gusset is basically a piece of material which spans 2 other pieces to reinforce it. And this is going to give me a stronger support in the corner. Just to give you an example, let me just pull this out for 1 second. You can see here, if I'm pushing on this or doing anything, I can easily break this corner apart. I don't want that to happen. So this gusset will give me the support that I need to resist that from happening. So again, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue just to secure the bond. And I'm going to place my gusset. You notice I'm placing the gusset a little bit in. I'm just indenting it a bit. And the reason I'm doing that is because when the canvas wraps around the frame, I want to make sure that I've got enough distance here to give it a bit of transition so that it doesn't give me a big bulge on the corner. You see that you're going to have a difference in heights back here, and that could show. I just want to make sure we don't have that. Now I'm going to put in 2 nails on each side. The reason for that is that I want to make sure that I've got a nice secure, it's nice and securely fastened. And if I only put 1 in on either side, it would act as a pivot. Okay, and now let's see, once we've got our gusset on, so now we can see that's a lot stronger. It has a little give, but not much. Once that glue cures, it's going to be really quite strong. So I'm going to continue and do this with the other piece. I want to mention, of course, that when I was doing the last half, I made sure that I had the long piece in my left hand. I want to do that again, so I've got 36 in my right, the long piece, the 48 in my left. And it's important to note that we need to make identical sides, or halves, I guess, is the way to put it, because they need to fit together. Well, that's too much glue. I'm just going to wipe a bit away. Okay. And if you imagine you have 2 L's, these, when you put them together, are going to have, they're not going to connect, okay? But if you have 2 that are the same, when you rotate it, they fit together, okay? And that's what I want to do here. I want to make sure that I've got 2 that fit together to create a square. Again, I'm just going to flip it and attach a gusset onto the back. So now, just to kind of illustrate this again, what we can see, 2 halves, they're identical. And when I flip this around, I'm going to end up making my rectangle. Okay, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're just going to fasten these together. And I just want to come in here. You can see the workspace is a little crowded, and most workspaces are. It's important just to make sure that you look at your workspace when you're starting. And I mean, I ran into this a little quick, but it's important to look at your workspace and make sure that you can work in that space. If you need to do cleanup, then do the cleanup and get it prepared for yourself. It's better that you do that than you end up frustrated and angry, and your work will suffer as a result, and anything you produce is going to suffer as well. So I'm just going to put the one side in. I'm just going to give it a little bit of glue here. And we're going to clamp it back down. And again, a couple nails on one side And now I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to go on to the other side. Now, if you don't have a table across from you, it's always good to work with a partner. It's nice to have somebody there while you're working that can hold on to your piece. If you notice what I'm doing here, what I have is, three corners are secured and one isn't. So I want to make sure that I'm securing this one with my hand or with some other way while I'm moving it around, because the last thing I want is for this to ruin all the other joins that I have here. I'm just securing my final corner here, and I'm just going to put some glue in. Now, one of the things that I recommend to everyone, and it's really more about just kind of time maintenance than anything. One thing is always make sure you know what you're doing, so what sizes you're going to do. And the second one is, if you're going to do one, you might as well do more than one, because you're already there, you're already building and constructing and cutting and measuring. And it's all about, it is about time management. This is a labor-intensive project. It's better to do 3 or 4 at one time than it is to do 3 or 4 at separate intervals. Okay, so now we have our outer frame constructed. You can see we've got 4 corners and 4 sides and 4 gussets, and that's great. We're happy and ready to go to the next step. What the important thing now is that we need something that's going to, okay, when you're building a canvas, you're obviously going to be stretching canvas over a frame. When you do that, what you're also going to be doing is putting some pressure on the outside frames, especially when you apply your gesso or your paint or your size, rabbit skin glue, whatever your material may be. That sizes the canvas. It shrinks up and it dries and it's going to stay shrunk. So it's going to apply pressure onto your outer frame, and it can create like an hourglass effect where the sides are puckering in. So what we need to do in order to counteract that is to put in some braces here. So we'll put one in the middle and one down the length. And that's going to help to counteract any puckering or any bowing or any sizing or shrinking that the canvas could experience when you're sizing it. Okay, so the first step with that is we need to measure our brace. And what I recommend is that you take your piece of wood. This is a really simple way to do it. You just place the butt end of it in the frame and try to get it as close to the side as you possibly can. The reason is that you want to try and maintain the inner measurement of your outside edge. If you measured it in the field or in the center of the frame, if this wood had already experienced any bowing, say, it came to you and it had a bit of an arc in it, you'd be reinforcing that. And what we can try to do here is we can actually try and correct any arcing or bowing that's happening in the wood. So again, just place it in close to the side, and I'm just going to put a mark. I'm really cheating here. I'm just transferring my mark. I'm not going to take out my tape measure at all. Once I have that mark, then I'm going to cut. And I'm not going to use the guillotine for this because it's a bit overkill. I'm going to use the miter box. Some love it, some hate it. I find if you just go slow and steady, you can get a nice cut. You'll notice, I just want to point out on the miter box, what you'll see here is you have your 45 degree, you have your 90 degree. On some miter box, you'll also have 5, 6, 8, and 12. And that corresponds to the number of sides that you can put onto your form. So this would be 5-sided, so a pentagon, a hexagon, an octagon, and whatever 12-sided deca something, hadron or something like that. And that looks great to me. And when I put it in here, perfect fit. So we know that we don't have any bowing going on. So I'm just going to put that away for now. And I'm going to do my other side. Because we're doing a cross brace, not just a single brace here. Okay, so again, I'm going to put it into the side. And I'm just going to transfer my mark. Okay, so now what I want to do, I'm just going to get a bit of room here. I'm going to lay my frame down on the floor. And then what I'm going to do, is I'm going to place both my braces in the middle. Now I'm doing a bit of a quick and dirty way of doing this. I'm not giving it too much time or anything here. I'm simply just placing them approximately in the middle. If you want to get finicky with it, by all means, go ahead. You can obviously just come along. You know this is roughly 36, so we want to go at 18. You know that this is 48, so we want to come at 24. And we can just move them out and adjust them if you want to be picky about it, but I don't really care. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to press down, and again, transferring my marks. I'm not being really finicky with this stuff. Okay, this is the inside. I want to get past this, and I want to start making. I want to start painting. So I'm just going to go ahead, and I'm transferring my mark. You can see this is a bit of an awkward move. You know, you want to pick it up. You can always do it in a bit of a different way if you want, by all means. And then you can lift it up. Usually it'll survive. If you've cut your braces true and exact and all of your wood is straight, then they'll usually stay in place through friction. So I'm just going to grab it. And again, cheating all the time. Now the reason why I've made these marks is because I want to put in a lap joint now. And a lap joint, for those of you who don't know, is a joint where you have two mating pieces. And I'm going to cut down roughly halfway into the wood. And I'm going to chisel all of this out. And that's going to create a recess there. I'm going to do the same thing on my mating piece of wood. Okay? And what happens is when I put them together, when I overlap them, they're going to fit together, and it's going to reduce the profile so that it's approximately the depth of one piece of wood. And what that does, again, is keeps the wood away from the back of the canvas, which limits any ghosting, any possible ghosting. So we want to try and make sure that we keep the wood away from the back of the canvas and allow the canvas to have a good amount of space, because it'll have some spring. So as you draw your brush across that surface loaded with paint, you don't want to hit anything, and it's going to give you it's going to have a bit of give, because it's just a piece of cloth stretched over a frame. So I'm going to come back to my miter box again. And now I'm going to cut down. Let me just show you again. Okay, so I want to be able to hit here. Okay, I'm going to do 4 cuts. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I want to make it easier for me to chisel it out. So I'm going to make 4 different grooves, 2 on the outside, 2 on the inside. And then when I come to chisel it, it'll be a little easier for me to get out. And I'm just going to do both my pieces of wood here. Again, approximately halfway. It's wise to stay shy if you can. If you go deeper than halfway, you do run the risk of compromising your material. So. Okay, so now I want to place the cross brace into my frame. And I'm just going to place it in. I'm just holding the center. I'll place it in here. And I want to make sure that I'm placing it so that my brace is flush with the back of the canvas, the back of the frame, so that I'm not getting any ghosting. I can't get any contact with the canvas, and especially in the middle. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually put a little notch. Because I've placed it, I know it fits. I'm going to put a little mark here, and that gives me a registration mark. Okay, and I'm just going to put a little mark over here. Just that I'm sure, because now what I'm going to do is fasten this middle brace. So I'm going to pull this one out, because otherwise it'll fall. Just pulling that out. And I'm just going to grab some nails. Okay, so again, a little bit of glue in here. And I'm actually putting my foot on the bottom side just to kind of hold it in place so that I can be hands-free if I need to. Okay, and I'm just going to pull this out a little bit. Again, it's a small dab of glue. Don't need much. And I'm just going to place that back in. And I've got my registration mark right there. So I can just line it up. And I know that my matching cross brace will fit. Okay? I'm going to put 2 nails in here because I want to make sure again that I'm not going to make a pivot. I want to secure it. And sometimes it's important if you do have some bowing in the wood, or if you've cut your brace a little bit short, sometimes it can float in that space and it's not really secure. Mine are quite tight. But if you put some pressure down on the top, it'll actually squeeze together that piece of wood and hold it in place. And you can drive your nail in and secure that brace without any problems. Okay. Once I've finished that, I'm going to grab the other side because I want to make sure again that I'm not going to lose it. Grab this side and I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now, one good thing to do here, grab your matching brace, put it up against it. This is the funny one. So half the time when I do this, I think I've completely messed it up. And then I turn it around. And it works fine. So just watch out for that one. It's a bit of a trick. Okay, so now I've got it matched up. I'm just going to pull this out. I'll do my mark. Pull this out again. Again, a dab of glue. And place it. And now I'm going to turn it and put in my matching brace. I'm just finessing the fit here. It's not quite an exact fit. I just want to get it a little finer. Again, I've got my registration mark down on the bottom here. You can see I'm just tapping it. I can fit it together pretty nicely. Okay. So I'm just going to tap a couple of nails in. So if you do something and you kind of make a little messy, it's no big deal because your canvas is going to go around this. Same with your corners. So another thing, don't get crazy, don't get too picky about corners. If your corners are a bit jagged, it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. You're going to stretch your canvas over this. It's going to hide the whole thing, and hopefully people are paying attention to the painting you've done on the canvas and not to the frame that you've painted on. Okay? So I'm going to turn this over. We're almost done. And next time when we're up, I'm going to show you how to stretch your canvas so you can get a nice and workable surface that's tight. Not too tight because you don't want it to wreck your canvas, to wreck your strainer, but tight enough that it'll give you a nice bit of bounce, but not too much. Okay? And there we have it. We've got our 3x4 frame ready to go. One thing you can do if you want, I don't normally do this because I don't feel it's that important, is you can secure these with a bit of glue. And I'll just go ahead. Let me just drag this table over. I'll go ahead and do that for the people at home. So I'm just going to squeeze a bit of glue in here. And I've got some shorter nails, and that's great. And I'm just going to put a little, attack.